Now, this is a cheeky gangster flick with attitude, and it's set in the west of Ireland. Is it only me, Dave, or do you struggle at times to understand the Irish accent when it's thrown at you in cinema?
No, because I've got Irish ancestors and Irish relatives, so I'm quite used to the accent.
You're the wrong one to ask. What about you, Greg King?
I found the accent quite cute, actually.
I think it's very sexy.
I understood most of it.
All right, so it's just me and my hearing, is it, Peter Krausz?
Maybe, because I followed it quite well as well.
Right. I actually found this easier than some, I've got to say, so I'd agree with that. Anyway, as the body count mounts, as I say, this is a cheeky gangster flick. It's a bloody delight, though, it really is, and I do mean that literally. So as the body count mounts, the star of the show, a lady called Pixie O'Brien, played by Olivia Cook, she bats her sexy eyelids and she schemes away. And we, the audience, like everybody else who comes into her orbit, a mere putty in her hands. Pixie happens to be the adopted daughter of a gangster who fell out with a bunch of gun-toting priests. Yes, there are such things, apparently. Led by Father Hector McGrath, a role tailor-made for Alec Baldwin. Now, Pixie's beloved mother died nearly 4 years ago when she was in her early 40s. And Pixie's the apple of her father, Dermot, played by Colin Meaney's, eyes. For all of her charms, she has this dorky sister called Summer and a stepbrother called Mickey. And the stepbrother can't stand her. Pixie's planning to raise hell to get back at those who got to her mum and then hightail it to San Francisco when the proverbial hits the fan. Her former boyfriend, this is getting complicated, Pixie's former boyfriend, and we're talking 6 months back, a guy called Colin, is convinced he can win her back and get rid of her latest beau. Colin and a mate called Fergus get wind of a big drug bust and burst in on a peaceful meeting of priests, or so it seems, and then all hell breaks loose. Meanwhile, Frank, played by Ben Hardy, has his eye on Pixie. He and his best mate Harland are given the nod by their friendly, small-time, neighbourhood drug-dealing mate called Daniel that Pixie's hot to trot, so to speak. And in the middle of the night, 2 a.m. to be precise, Frank knocks on her door, leaving Harland in the car to take his turn thereafter. Only Frank's best-laid plans, pun fully intended, come a cropper, while Harland suddenly finds himself dealing with Pixie's ex-boyfriend who's carrying a firearm and is quite prepared to use it. The outcome of that is hardly what either of the mates expected. What a hoot this movie is. Really enjoyable, Dave, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I absolutely love this film, and it's made me wonder why director Barnaby Thompson hasn't done more over his career, because he started off as a producer on movies like Wayne's World, but didn't start directing movies until he was well and truly into his 50s. Pixie is very much the kind of film that has Guy Ritchie's gangster stylings meeting Quentin Tarantino's style of over-the-top action. Of course, you see a massive shootout here in a church that Tarantino would be very proud of. It's a stunning little film that got very little publicity here in Australia and has come out, and just about everybody that I know who's been along to see it has absolutely fallen in love with it. So I'm not sure why it didn't get that publicity push that it probably needed. Cook is brilliant in this film. She plays the seductress so well, and she's an unlikable character, but you end up liking her. And of course, we've seen her do that in Bates Motel and television shows like that. But this movie has so many people in it that you just think, I want to see where they go with their future, that it's going to become one of those cult classic films, definitely, I think.
Wholeheartedly concur with all of what you've said. I mean, I think this is a star vehicle for Cook. This really will project her career. And Dave mentioned Guy Ritchie and also mentioned Quentin Tarantino. Peter, I want to throw into the mix Martin McDonagh films. I mean, In Bruges and things of that nature. This has got so much going for it, hasn't it?
It is. It is a sort of a hybrid, I suppose, of all of those directors' films. And yes, I very much enjoyed it as well, especially when it has that shootout in the church. I think that was very amusing. Alec Baldwin obviously relished that role amongst all the others in the cast. And I also enjoyed the flexibility of the writing in terms of the Itu Mama Tambian moment between the two guys who are aligned with the lead actress. Look, overall, I enjoyed it, and it shows that Irish cinema, which doesn't make a huge number of films, but they make some really powerful ones, and some very strong ones in different genres, that Irish cinema is one to watch, and I quite enjoyed it.
Well, Greg, in terms of the Olivia Cook role, Pixie could, let's face it, she could charm the scales off a rattlesnake and the reptile wouldn't even know it.
You're right there, Alex, but I agree with most of what everyone has said there, and I love the scenery too. The Irish scenery was captivating there. The music added so much to the film as well there. And I also thought there was a touch of Sergio Leone spaghetti westerns to some of the drama in this film as well. And the Guy Ritchie and Quentin Tarantino references are obvious there. It's a film that keeps going in different directions. You're never quite sure where it's going and what's going to happen next, which I think keeps you hooked on the drama as well. Olivia Cook, as you've all pointed out, superb there, leading from the front with this performance there. I like Cole Meany. He's got a sort of glint in his eye as the villain there. Alec Baldwin having a bit of fun. And, I just thought this film was really a treat. I really loved it too.
Absolutely. Well, it moves along at pace and it does keep us engaged throughout. There are no shortage of characters undoubtedly to star. The person who hits it out of the park is the woman we've spoken about, Olivia Cook, who's, I think, in her late 20s in real life. I mean, she's fresh, she's sassy, she oozes class, and there's this sort of twinkle in her eyes throughout. And that's exactly what the role demands. She's got a great sense of comic timing. And, I mean, Ben Hardy and Daryl McCormack, they're the two that play the couple of lightweights out of their depth who basically are manipulated by the Pixie character. They do their job. I agree, the landscape is just beautiful. The cinematography, excellent. This is a bit of a drive through the Irish countryside. John de Boorman is responsible for the cinematography. This is a wild ride. It's well worth taking if you don't mind the excessive violence that the vehicle requires. I mean, we're making no bones about the fact that it is a tongue-in-cheek gangster film, and that's what it needed to be. So I don't think it's quite as sophisticated as some of the earlier references that we've made with regards to some of the other directors, but it's certainly getting there, and I'm really looking forward to what both the screenwriter and the director can turn up next. This is a really excellent movie and well worth watching. Pixie, MA rated for good reason, 93 minutes, score out of 10, Peter Krausz.
Yes, I quite enjoyed it as a pastiche, and it moves well, but I give it 7 out of 10.
All right, Gregory King.
Yeah, 7 to 7.5 out of 10 for me too. Yeah, a good thrill ride and a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. And Dave, maybe sensing a mark slightly higher than that from you?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. This film was right in my ballpark. 8 out of 10 for me. I loved it.
Yeah, and 7.5 out of 10 for mine. So we're all close by with regards to the scores. Let's go to some